When the night finally loosened its hold on me, I stepped out into the cool air. The street was nearly silent, only the hum of a distant engine breaking the stillness. My feet carried me home, but my mind lagged behind, trapped in the shadows of what had just happened. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if I were dragging the weight of a secret that could never be spoken. Unlocking my door, I slipped inside quietly, careful not to make a sound. The house was dark, familiar, safe. My partner lay asleep, breathing softly, unaware of where I had been or what I had done. I stood there for a moment, watching, my chest tightening with guilt. The sight of them, peaceful, trusting, cut deeper than any judgment could. I lay down beside them, though sleep refused to come. My body was still alive with sensations I couldn't forget, my mind replaying each moment from the neighbor's house like a film that wouldn't stop rolling. I turned on my side, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I could return to the person I had been just hours before. Morning arrived far too quickly. Sunlight spilled across the room, ordinary and unforgiving. My partner stirred, asked simple questions about breakfast, the day ahead, little things that should have felt normal. But nothing felt normal. Every word caught in my throat, and every smile I offered felt forced. I thought I could bury it, pretend it had never happened. But the memory clung to me, sharper than truth, softer than denial. In the quiet spaces of the day, I would drift back, hearing whispers in my ear, feeling hands I couldn't name, remembering the look in my neighbor's eyes as if he had marked me in some unseen way. Later that week, I saw him again. He was outside, leaning casually against the wall of his porch, as though nothing extraordinary had passed between us. Our eyes met for only a second, but in that second, I felt the same pull, the same dangerous curiosity. He gave the smallest nod, an unspoken reminder that the night was not forgotten. I turned away quickly, pretending not to notice, yet my pulse betrayed me. The truth was, part of me feared him, feared the control he seemed to have without saying a word. But another part of me craved that silent invitation, the possibility of returning to that forbidden space. At home, things shifted in small ways. My partner noticed. They didn't ask directly, but I could feel their suspicion in the way their eyes lingered longer, in the pauses during conversations, in the soft questions that seemed harmless but carried hidden weight. I answered carefully, always choosing words that concealed more than they revealed. But guilt is not a quiet companion. It gnaws, it whispers, it lingers in silence. Some nights, I would lie awake, staring at the person beside me, torn between confession and concealment. To admit the truth would shatter everything. To keep it buried meant living with the constant ache of deception. And yet, beneath the guilt, the memory still stirred. It wasn't just the touch or the night itself. It was the way it had made me feel alive, as though I had uncovered a part of myself I had long denied. That contradiction tore at me. Desire against loyalty, fulfillment against betrayal. Days turned into weeks, but the secret remained. The neighbor's glances, brief and sharp, reminded me that the story wasn't finished. It hovered in the air between us, waiting. Each time I crossed paths with him, I felt the question rise again. Would I resist or would I return? I told myself I would never let it happen again, that I had learned my lesson. But the truth was far more fragile. Because once you've stepped across a line, once you've tasted the forbidden, it never disappears. It waits, patient, tempting, knowing that one weak moment is all it takes. And so I carried on, smiling when expected, speaking when spoken to, playing the part of loyalty. But beneath the surface, a storm raged. The night, with my neighbor and his friends lived inside me, a memory and a temptation, a secret that could unravel everything if it ever came to light. In the quietest moments, when the world fell still, I would close my eyes and ask myself one question: was it worth it? The answer never came, only the echo of the night that had changed me forever. The room seemed to blur around me as my neighbor rose from his seat. Without a word, he gestured for me to follow him. My chest tightened, but my legs moved on their own, carrying me down a narrow hallway toward a door that was already half open. The low light spilled into the corridor, casting a soft glow that felt both inviting and ominous. He led me inside. The air was heavier there, quiet except for the faint thrum of my own heartbeat. For a moment, we stood in silence, his eyes on me, his presence filling the space. Then, with a small nod, he stepped aside, letting another man follow us in. I understood then. This wasn't coincidence. This was orchestrated. The realization sent a rush through me, fear tangled with anticipation. I should have stopped it, should have walked away. But instead, I let myself sink into the current of whatever was unfolding. The first encounter was cautious, almost gentle. His movements slow, his voice a low murmur meant only for me. My thoughts darted back to home, to the one who trusted me, to the promises I was breaking in that very moment. Yet even as guilt pressed down on me, my body betrayed me, leaning into the touch, surrendering to the unspoken invitation. When it ended, I thought I would be released back into the safety of the night. But the door opened again, and another man stepped in. My neighbor's shadow lingered in the doorway, silent, watching, guiding this unseen ritual. The second time was different, more assertive, more insistent. There was no hesitation in his movements, no pause for second thoughts. I felt consumed, my defenses stripped away layer by layer. Every whisper, every breath against my skin pushed me deeper into surrender. I wanted to resist, to reclaim control, but some part of me was drawn to the rawness of it, the way it made me feel both powerless and alive. Each moment stretched long, filling me with sensations I had buried for years. My heart wavered between thrill and shame. I knew that with every second, I was stepping further into betrayal. And yet I didn't stop. I couldn't. When it was over, I lay still, breath unsteady, trying to gather the scattered pieces of myself. But the night was not finished with me. The third man entered, his presence quieter than the others. He didn't rush, didn't demand. Instead, he lingered, studying me as though trying to read the story written across my silence. His touch was deliberate, his pace unhurried, almost tender. It was this gentleness that unraveled me most of all. There was no urgency, no force, only an intimacy that felt dangerously close to comfort. Somewhere in the blur of it all, I caught sight of my neighbor again. He leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable, almost satisfied, as though he had crafted this entire evening with intention. His eyes met mine briefly, and in that gaze I understood this was what he had wanted all along. By the time the night slowed, I was drained, my thoughts tangled in confusion. I sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand across my face, trying to steady my breath. Guilt clawed at me, sharper than ever. I imagined the quiet of my own home, the trust of the one who believed in me, and I felt the weight of what I had done pressing down with unbearable force. And yet, beneath that guilt, another truth pulsed. I couldn't deny the way my body had responded, the way desire had eclipsed reason, the way I had allowed myself to be swept into something I had long craved but never dared to admit. When I finally rose, the three men had already disappeared back into the living room. My neighbor waited in the hallway, his expression calm, his lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile. He didn't need to say anything, his silence spoke enough. I walked past him, my steps unsteady, my heart heavier than it had ever been. I knew the night wasn't something I could erase. It would stay with me, a secret etched into my skin, hidden from the world outside. And as I made my way back toward the door, the music still humming faintly in the background, one thought echoed through me. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. I never imagined that an ordinary evening would unfold into something so unexpected. My days usually passed in routine silence, work, home, a few conversations with my partner that felt more like habit than connection. Somewhere along the line, our love had settled into comfort, but comfort can sometimes feel like distance. I never admitted it out loud, yet a quiet ache lingered in me, a longing for something that would shake me awake. That evening I was in my room, half lost in thought when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my neighbor. His words were simple: "Come over tonight." I stared at the screen, uncertain of how to respond. We weren't strangers, but we weren't close either. Over the months, I had noticed the way his glances lingered, the way his presence felt heavier than casual. There was always something unspoken, some invisible pull between us. I should have ignored the invitation. I should have stayed where I was, safe within the walls of what I already knew. But curiosity has a way of drowning out reason. I typed a short reply: "I'll be there." The walk to his house felt heavier than it should have. The street was quiet, the lamps throwing long shadows on the ground. My heartbeat quickened with every step. I kept telling myself I was only going to be polite, nothing more. Yet, deep down, I knew I was stepping into something dangerous. When he opened the door, the faint smell of cologne and smoke slipped out into the night air. He greeted me with a knowing smile and stepped aside, letting me in. The living room was dim, its corners softened by the glow of a single lamp. That was when I saw them. 3 men sitting together, their eyes lifting toward me as I entered. They were strangers, yet their presence carried weight, as though they had been waiting for me. For a moment, I froze. My neighbor's hand brushed lightly against my shoulder, urging me forward. I sat down, though my body was tense. Silence filled the room, broken only by the low hum of music playing somewhere in the background. Every second felt stretched, heavy with unspoken meaning. I told myself this was nothing, just a gathering, just people spending time together. But the air suggested otherwise. The way their eyes lingered, the way my neighbor's hand rested a little too close on the arm of the sofa, it all carried an undertone I couldn't ignore. Inside me, 2 voices began to argue. One whispered of loyalty, of promises I had made to someone waiting at home. The other whispered of desire, of hidden cravings I had tried to bury for too long. The second voice grew louder with each passing minute. My neighbor leaned close, his breath warm near my ear. "Relax," he murmured softly, almost in a whisper. The words settled into me, loosening something I didn't realize I had been holding. The conversation in the room was minimal, almost unnecessary. Glances spoke more than words. I could feel the intensity of being observed, as though I had stepped into the center of something carefully arranged. It was unsettling, yet strangely electrifying. I thought about leaving. I even shifted in my seat, ready to stand, but my neighbor caught my wrist, gently, firmly, as if to say, "Not yet." His grip wasn't forceful, but it was enough to hold me there, suspended in the moment. I realized then that I had crossed an invisible line the moment I walked through that door. This wasn't a casual visit. This was an invitation into temptation, and I had accepted it willingly. My chest tightened with anticipation, dread, and excitement, all tangled together. The night stretched ahead of me like an unanswered question. I didn't know what exactly awaited, but part of me already understood. I wasn't sure if I wanted to resist anymore. And as my neighbor's voice broke the silence, calm, assured, inviting me deeper into the night, I knew that the story of this evening had only just begun.